Of course, we're going to understand the new campaign against littering that was set out by NEMA. Back in February, the National Environmental Management Authority announced that it had suspended the plans of enforcement of the requirement for all vehicles to have dustbins, or they pay 6 million shillings in terms of fine in default. Now, in a statement that was released on Friday, a few hours to the commencement of the enforcement, which was supposed to be happening on 1st April, which is also known as Fool's Day, NEMA Executive Director came out to say that they had halted this particular exercise for the next 30 days after an engagement with Public Transporters Federation. Now, to help us understand the reasons why, but also the backbone of the entire implementation program, we do have the Executive Director, the National Environmental Management Authority, with us this morning. Mr. Akankwasa, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Priscilla. A very good morning to our viewers and listeners.
All right. So let's first understand where this particular initiative is coming from. I know that it's there to protect the environment, but also to have Ugandans take up responsibility to take care of their own environment. But under what law do you actually come up with this program?
Thank you very much, Priscilla. In 2019, Parliament enacted what we call the National Environment Act, which is Act number 5 of 2019. And in this act, there are several measures for protection of the environment. These include prohibition of littering. It includes prohibition of developments without environment and social impact assessment. It prohibits failure to conduct and submit environment audits for developments which are already approved, degradation of wetlands, prohibition of noise pollution, prohibition of dealing in hazardous chemicals, prohibition of dealing in waste without license, and so many others. So early Feb, we came up with an initiative to enforce these provisions, because the law was enacted in 2019. Immediately after, we went into COVID and related things. So the law has really largely not been implemented yet. So we came up with an initiative to implement the provisions of the law. And this initiative was arrived at using the powers that are given to us by Section 172 of the National Environment Act, the same act, which says that the authority can actually come up with fines for people who have offended, or for offenders of the provisions of the law, people who have committed offenses under the law. So these fines were announced. They were a variety of them, but I think the public chose littering to be one of the most prominent, which we appreciate, because the issue of littering is also not a small one. It's a very, very big one. Littering is a big, big issue. And so we've been having debates.
When you say it's a big issue, statistically, what does that look like? I
can tell you that our urban authorities are able to collect only 40% of the waste that we generate. The 60% finds its way to the drainage channels, to our soils, to our water bodies. It is burnt and therefore finds itself in the air, and there are several consequences. Globally, 60% of water pollution comes from litter. You've seen floods along Kampala roads and other roads. You've seen people dumping waste into wetlands and forest reserves. You've seen medical waste, which is hazardous, by the way, being dumped in wetlands, in open air. Now, these normally find their way into the soils, and the soils have your crops, my crops, which we grow from there, and we eat these, and eventually take in these bacteria, take in these viruses. If we do not take them through plants, we take them through the fish that we eat, through the water we drink. And so 1 liter increases the taxpayers' cost on cleaning up of the environment. if you look at the KCCA records, they spent huge sums of money in trying to collect the litter that is everywhere.
Yeah, but you see, on that point of KCCA, it's not that they are actually spending a lot of money on collecting litter, but they don't even have enough capacity to collect the existing litter. If you've talked about that 40%, the 60% reason as to why it's going to the ground is because KCCA cannot collect the entire garbage. They don't have the capacity to do so.
Partly yes, partly no. You see, when waste is not littered, when waste is sorted on at source and it is segregated properly, you don't need the KCCA to find the money to manage it because it has value. Organic waste will be taken up by industrialists to make organic manure, to make animal feeds. So actually, KCCA will not fight with it. There are people out there who are interested in this organic waste to generate power, for example.
Okay.
So there would be value.
What you're saying, I'm picturing this. We had it in high school where we did have different incinerators to take care of the different forms of waste. I think the best we see it, people relate with, is in hospitals where you have dustbins that have plastics, cottons,
green,
and
red, and you know.
Exactly.
Yes.
So in regards to that, when you bring it to public waste management, we're not seeing that because you will have one bin that has been placed by KCCA and it will fill to capacity. You don't have options of bins to really accordingly place and separate the waste that you're referring to. So it goes back to management still.
That's part of the problem. This campaign is not only targeting the pedestrians, the motorists, and the building owners. It is also targeting lead agencies like urban authorities, because the law puts responsibility on them and the districts to manage waste that is generated in their locality. But we need to help them by, first of all, ensuring that we do not litter. When you do not litter, when you put litter to where waste weight is supposed to be, it makes it easy for collection by the urban authorities. It makes it easy for industrialists to use this waste. Plastics can be selected, picked, and recycled, and there is value to that. And so is the organic waste. So that's why we said, in order to save our country from becoming a big dustbin, let us take measures to protect our country from litter. So how do we protect our country from litter? By ensuring that buildings have proper waste disposal bins, by ensuring that public service vehicles have trash bins or waste receptacles within them, by ensuring that pedestrians should find waste collection bins along streets, along roads, petrol stations, for example, so that everyone has where to put waste instead of just openly throwing it on the streets.
Mr. Akankwasa, again, reflecting to the times under which we had Jennifer Musisi as the Executive Director at KCCA,
yes.
We had a good control of our waste, because every few meters you'd actually have a dustbin, and those campaigns were quite evident. The dustbins were quite evident, and Ugandans were actually very responsive to these initiatives that had been placed there. When that era went, even the dustbins went on the streets. If I'm to give you an example, just look at Buganda Road alone. You can't actually in pictorial place a dustbin anywhere, yet there was about 8 dustbins on just Buganda Road, between where you do have CPS and Watoto Church. So if you are wanting people to put this garbage within a place of convenience for them, they still have to dispose it off somewhere.
That's very true. I entirely agree, and we are actually working very closely with the KCCA and other cities in Mbarara, Hoima, Fort Potro, to be able to provide waste bins on main streets. So
why don't we have those provisions coming through first, and then you ask Ugandans to take up self-initiative?
No, the two have to go hand in hand. I mean, it is not that we entirely do not have. You are not giving
city authorities the mandate to ensure that by 1st April they are equally providing disposal places.
They are actually fully on board. Not only are they fully on board, we have even other players that are coming on board. Petrol stations or fuel stations are going to have big bins where trash from moving vehicles that have come to fuel from these petrol stations will empty their waste bins. So it's not that the other players are not doing anything. No, we are moving together along the same chain.
Are you having a repercussion initiative for the Wananchi before those that are supposed to help us have a clean and smart city are put on the same pressure?
The point is, pressure is to everybody. Because you see, littering is an offense created by law. But you must be aided not to litter.
But we're not,
which becomes
we're not seeing, we want to, okay, what I'm saying is that Ugandans want to hear NEMA also saying that city authorities, please ensure by 1st April, this and this and this has been put in place to complement the initiative you're
I fully agree. I hear you, Priscilla, and I am saying that we are actually moving together with them. So as we push citizens not to litter, the city authorities, the district local governments are also along the way putting in place mechanisms, including private sector, like I said, the fuel stations and others, markets, for example, commercial buildings like arcades. It's not that we are ending at don't litter, no. We are going a long way to the building owners, to city authorities, to fuel stations, to households. Even in your household, you should have a garbage bin. You don't need KCCA to first bring a garbage bin to your home where you stay. But you need KCCA to provide the bigger, skid collection point where you empty your domestic garbage bin. So we are addressing it holistically, not only
Okay,
on
so
littering.
in addressing it holistically, please help us understand, for example, the authorities, what engagements and directives have you shared with the authorities, and what are the timelines on implementation or execution?
The authorities, we are planning and implementing it together. We are together in this. So we are pushing the communities, we are pushing the society together. It's not NEMA versus KCCA or district local government, no. It is NEMA in a partnership with KCCA, in a partnership with the cities, in a partnership with the district local government to drive this campaign. So it's not that they have to be given directives, no. We are planning together, we are moving together.
So that's Mr. Akankwasa, that's what we want to understand. What are those plans in particular?
The plans are KCA, for example, if I can give you the ones of Kampala. KCA is going to put trash bins along all the busy streets. We have had a meeting with the, Mr. Rimbazi. And we have had several engagements also with the Authority Directorate of Public Health, and they are working on this to have garbage bins on all main streets. In the markets, they are already there. Where they are not enough, they will be added more. On petrol stations, we are engaging the petrol station owners. On commercial buildings, it is mandatory, it is incumbent upon the owner of the building to actually provide a waste receptacle. So these are ongoing. And we are actually enforcing against these commercial buildings as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you talk about this, it all comes down to a requirement of a budget to actually implement some of these things. Now we are almost done with this financial year's budget. It was not included in the planning. Therefore, we don't assume that we're going to be seeing these results until the next financial year, when the authorities, the local government, district levels have to budget for this initiative to take center stage.
Certainly not. Waste management is an integral part of day-to-day business of cities and local governments. So it's not that this is coming as a new thing, no. It's an integral part of the work they do routinely. KCCA manages waste. That's where we are saying they are collecting up to 40%. So it's not that they have been sleeping and now they are coming to wake up. No, no, no. They have been doing this job and they are going to continue doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have also had protests from various stakeholders. I think one of the loudest was the Uganda Law Society that came out on grounds that there was no enabling law that NEMA is relying on to enforce the motorists to actually take the direction you were going to enact.
We've had the engagements with my brother, Bernard Oundo, the president of Uganda Law Society.
Okay.
We have had discussions at length. Even last night we had a debate with him. Section 97, clause 8 and 9 creates the offense of littering under the National Environment Act. So if you are convicted of the offense of littering, the fine is 11 million. 11 million. But we are saying under the administrative fines scheme established under section 172 of National Environment Act, we're saying you can actually avoid going to court by paying a smaller fine to clean up the damage you've created under what we call as environmentalists the polluter pay principle. You pay to clean up the damage you've created or the bad you've done on the environment. So section 172 gives us power to fine people. Section 97 creates the offense of littering in vehicles, on buildings, pedestrians. Then regulation 33 of National Waste Management Regulations, statutory instrument 49 of 2020, specifically provides that owners of public service vehicles, vessels actually, including boats, buses, matatus, coasters, are required mandatorily to provide waste receptacles in these vehicles. And they also find it okay because we've had engagements with the Federation of Public Transporters in Uganda, and they are the ones actually who asked for more time to sensitize their people, their members, the conductors, the drivers, to ensure that they install these waste receptacles. Actually, on our launch day on 1st April, our teams were in the field. You must have seen them. They were in the parks, on the streets, and we actually found that quite a number of buses are installing these waste receptacles. Some taxis, matatus already had started. So we had no reason not to listen to the asks of the Federation of Public Transporters to give them more time. That's why we gave them 30 days grace period. So the countdown will begin again from 1st April to end of April. And in our view, there is progress already. People are responding. I was pleased to see in the newspapers, I think along Bugorobi or something, a lady passenger, no offense to the ladies, a lady passenger in a coaster threw a plastic bag out of the coaster. The coaster driver stopped the vehicle. All the passengers asked the lady passenger to go out of the coaster, go pick the plastic bag, bring it back to the vehicle, and they proceeded on their journey. That's the Uganda that we need. That's the Uganda that minds about the health and well-being of the environment and the people. We cannot pride in being a litter-full country, not at all.
Okay. In regards to enforcement, you do have NEMA police. So why are you engaging traffic police in aiding of the enforcement?
Uganda Police Act and the Constitution establish Uganda Police Force as the body responsible for law and order and law enforcement. So the environment police that the NEMA uses is also part of the regular police. It is a department and a Uganda Police Force. So there is absolutely nothing wrong having the Uganda Police Force participate in enforcement of a law made by Parliament. So it is perfectly in order.
Okay.
Yeah.
An incident happened after you put out a statement to halt this exercise from being rolled out on 1st April. Unfortunately, on the roads of Uganda, the police have already started rolling out this, even in light of the information coming through from NEMA giving an extension of 30 days. Someone was telling me of their experience yesterday. They were stopped in Kajansi by a police officer who asked them to show them the dustbin, and they had a receptacle, a bag for them to put in their trash, and they showed the officer that that's my trash can, that's my dustbin, and the officer said no, they said dustbins. So what that brings out is that lack of information or education thereof of the enforcers in terms of helping NEMA actually achieve the prohibition to littering.
No, I want to salute that officer who asked for the trash bin, and I want to salute the men, officers and the men of Uganda Police Force for, you know, coming up very clearly to support this initiative. What was suspended, this should be very, very clear. Maybe I need to face the camera and tell Ugandans. What was suspended is the mandatory requirement to have a garbage receptacle in a public service vehicle. But enforcement against littering is not postponed, it is not suspended. So if a police officer finds you or a passenger in a vehicle or a private vehicle littering, they should actually stop the vehicle, arrest and prosecute.
If they find you littering, yes, but you're not found littering, it's going to be the case of traffic police will stop you and ask you for a dustbin. They are waiting to see the square or rectangle box in your vehicle, not a bag. So that's the education mishap that we're going to be facing, and therefore you're going to have them using it as an option to actually get kintu kidogo, hence, you know, fueling corruption that we're trying to fight in Uganda.
We are working very closely with the Uganda police. We shall sensitize them also. We shall sensitize our people on what to look for. This is because people have been asking, what form should a waste receptacle, a garbage bin look like?
Yes.
And our argument is that there is no standard. We encourage people to use waste receptacle bags that have impermeable lining.
Okay.
You can make a bag that has an impermeable lining inside so that it can contain liquids, it can contain solid waste. Because these open plastic baskets, in my view, they are not encouraged, because if a car jacks, it can actually pour the contents to the passengers. So we encourage trash bags which have impermeable lining. And even private vehicles, SUVs, in as much as the law does not mandatorily require them to have garbage receptacles, we encourage them also to have garbage bags. Instead of moving with trash on a passenger seat or in a behind seat or in your pockets, that's not a nice way of living. You, even if the law does not require you mandatorily to have it, you can have your small trash bag. I have one in my car. It's not a bus, it's not a matatu. So it's good practice, it is good personal hygiene to have where to contain your waste.
Okay.
So we encourage the police not to arrest any person not having a waste receptacle until after 30 days grace period, where the public service vehicles must have it. For now, the police should arrest anybody found littering, because that one is not postponed. Our enforcement teams are on the ground. Okay.
All right. Speaking of this particular initiative, how feasible is it? Because so many countries, more developed or even less developed than us, at least have achieved what is known as an elevated status of cleanliness without having to go the direction that NEMA is taking Ugandans. So,
like which country and what have they done? Give me one country that has achieved that without having measures to prevent litter.
Without having this particular measure.
The measure of waste receptacle.
Yes.
So how do they do it? Do they carry the waste in the pockets?
I will have to refer you to our neighbors in Rwanda.
Yes, how do they collect the waste in their vehicles?
As far as public authorities are concerned, they have ensured that they have provided every necessary element to support in waste management, environmental protection.
Including waste receptacles in vehicles. It is there. It is there because there is no way you are going to control somebody not to drink a soda or water or not to eat a banana. It's not practical, it's not possible. Human beings must eat, human beings must drink. So you are not telling me that a bus will be stopping every time you finish drinking your water so that you find where to dispose. It's not possible. Okay. So all countries that have succeeded have these measures in place. Okay. If you go to Europe, buses have trash receptacles where to put it, and so is any country that has succeeded. So there is nothing out of the usual. This is the best practice. There is no any other means of containing waste in a public vehicle other than having where to collect it.
All right, your call to action in your closing remarks.
Yeah, I want to call upon Ugandans to look at this campaign as not a government campaign, not a NEMA campaign. This is a campaign for all citizens. We want a country that we can pride in, a country that makes us proud, a country that is free from disease, a country that is free from litter, a country that has good environment, which eventually leads to good well-being of our citizens. Nobody else will do it for us. It is only us to do it. We do not have any other country that we call home other than Uganda, and the country we live in must make us proud. And so I call upon every Ugandan to avoid littering. Don't litter. Have where to contain your litter in your vehicle, in your house, in the market, in the arcade, so that our country is kept clean for our own good.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Akankwasa, Executive Director with NEMA. And to that, we're going to be taking a short breather.